"Accept me as your concubine. I will do anything you ask," pleaded the poor mother. The sun hung low in the dusty sky, casting long, sharp shadows across the small, weather-beaten town of Red Rock. The wind whispered through the streets, carrying with it the scent of dry earth and worn timber. Mary trudged along the main road, her thin shoes kicking up small puffs of dust with each tired step. The weight of her world pressed heavily on her shoulders, more than her small, frail frame could truly bear. Her hands, calloused from endless work and worry, clutched a small bundle wrapped in a faded cloth. Her two children, Anna and Samuel, both asleep, their cheeks smudged with dirt and their stomachs empty. Mary had lost her husband 2 winters ago to a cruel illness that had swept through the town without mercy. Life had become a relentless struggle ever since. Every day was a fight for survival, and every night was haunted by the gnawing fear that she would not be able to feed her children again. The town offered little mercy to widows, especially those who had nothing to offer in return. The few jobs available were hard and paid barely enough to buy bread, let alone the extra food she needed for 2 growing children. Mary often went to bed with her stomach empty, choosing to give the little food they had to Anna and Samuel, forcing herself to sleep on hunger so her children could survive. She stopped in front of a small wooden shop, peering through the dusty glass window. Inside, the shopkeeper counted coins for a customer, paying no attention to her pleading eyes. Mary turned away, her heart sinking, but she pushed on. She knew that in Red Rock survival depended not just on strength but on cunning and courage. Desperation, she realized, could lead to choices that would never have seemed possible in better times. As she walked through the streets, Mary heard whispers about Silas Crawford. He was a man whose name carried weight in every corner of Red Rock. Some said he had been born with a silver spoon, while others claimed his wealth was built on cunning deals and ruthless decisions. His mansion stood at the edge of town, larger than any other building, with tall gates and high walls that seemed to mock the struggling townsfolk. Rumor had it that he had a weakness, a desire for companionship in his lonely life, one that often took the form of women who were willing to serve him in exchange for safety, money, or favor. Mary stopped by the edge of the market, overhearing a few women talking quietly among themselves. "Did you hear?" one said. "Silas might be taking a new companion." If a poor woman dares to approach him, it could mean food and shelter for life, if she's willing to obey. Mary's heart tightened at the words. The thought of offering herself in such a way made her stomach turn, yet a part of her recognized the grim practicality in it. She had exhausted every honest option. Work was scarce, the townsfolk were weary and suspicious, and her children's bellies were empty more often than not. She thought of Anna's pale cheeks and Samuel's quiet whimpers at night when hunger kept him awake. She could not stand by while they suffered. That night, Mary sat by the small fire in their rented cabin, the only place that offered them a fragile sense of security. She held Anna and Samuel close, feeling the warmth of their bodies and the fragile heartbeat of life that she had sworn to protect. "Mama will find a way," she whispered, brushing their hair gently, though her own eyes brimmed with tears. "I promise. I will find a way." Sleep came fitfully, as it always did, haunted by visions of hunger and hopelessness. But somewhere deep inside, a spark of determination flickered. She would do whatever it took to keep her children alive, even if it meant stepping into a world she had never imagined. A world ruled by a man like Silas Crawford. The next morning, she rose before dawn, her body stiff and aching from the night's uneasy sleep. She dressed her children in the best clothes she could find, tattered though they were, and set out toward the Crawford mansion. Each step toward the grand estate felt heavy, as if the earth itself were trying to hold her back. The gates loomed ahead, tall and formidable, a symbol of the life she could only reach by walking a dangerous path. She rehearsed what she would say, how she would present herself. Pride and shame warred within her, but desperation held her steady. She could see the mansion now, rising like a fortress over the dusty land, the windows gleaming faintly in the early morning light. A few workers moved about the yard, chopping wood and tending horses, their eyes briefly flicking to her with curiosity before they returned to their labor. She took a deep breath and walked up to the main entrance, her small hand raised in a tentative knock. The door swung open before she could even finish her first knock, revealing a tall man with sharp eyes and a scrutinizing gaze. Silas Crawford himself. Mary's heart thudded in her chest as she lifted her chin, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "Madam," Silas said, his voice calm but carrying an unspoken authority that made Mary shrink slightly. "What brings you to my home at this hour?" Mary swallowed hard, the words catching in her throat. "Sir, I have no one else to turn to," she said, her voice trembling. "My children, they are starving. I am willing to do anything you ask, if you will help me care for them." Silas studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Mary could feel the heat of judgment in his gaze, the silent measure of her worth in his eyes. She stood as still as she could, refusing to flinch under his scrutiny, though her heart pounded like a drum in her chest. Finally he spoke, his tone deliberate. "Anything you say?" That is a strong word. Most would not speak it lightly. Mary's lips quivered, but she nodded. "I mean it. I would do anything to protect my children. Please, sir, help us." A shadow of something unreadable crossed Silas's face. He motioned for her to step inside. "Very well. You shall have work here. But understand this. Life in this house is not easy, and obedience is not requested. It is demanded. Fail in that, and there will be consequences." Mary's stomach sank at his words, yet relief mingled with her fear. She had stepped into a dangerous world, one that could easily swallow her whole, but she had taken the first step toward saving Anna and Samuel. As she followed Silas into the grand hallway, the weight of the future pressed down on her, and she knew there would be no turning back. That day Mary began her new life, one of service, careful observation, and endless labor. She cleaned rooms that smelled of dust and old wood, carried water from the well, and tended to the garden, all under Silas's watchful eye. Each task was exhausting, and each glance from him reminded her that her survival depended not on skill alone, but on unwavering obedience. Yet even as the labor took its toll, Mary refused to falter. She thought of her children constantly, imagining their tiny faces filled with hope if she could succeed. Every bead of sweat, every aching muscle was worth it if it meant a meal in their stomachs, a roof over their heads, a chance at life. The days blended into weeks. Mary learned the rhythms of the household, the strict schedules, and the subtle rules that governed life under Silas Crawford's roof. She discovered small ways to assert herself without defiance, moments of quiet cunning that allowed her to care for her children while remaining in his favor. Through it all, the town of Red Rock whispered behind her back. Some pitied her, seeing only a desperate widow making difficult choices. Others scorned her, claiming she had traded dignity for survival. But Mary ignored their judgments, focusing instead on the small victories that kept Anna and Samuel fed, clothed, and alive. Mary realized that the Wild West was not a land of fairness or mercy. It was a land where courage, cunning, and determination determined who survived and who did not. She had been forced into impossible choices, yet in every choice, she held on to her love for her children, the unshakable, fierce force that drove her forward, even when the world seemed intent on crushing her. By the end of her first month at the mansion, Mary had adapted to the harsh reality she faced. She moved with purpose, spoke with respect, and endured every hardship silently, all for the sake of the two small lives depending on her. She had crossed the threshold into a new world, one that demanded sacrifices she had never imagined, but she knew she had taken the only path available to protect her children. And in the quiet moments when the children slept and the house was still, Mary allowed herself a single thought. She would survive this world no matter what it required, because her love for Anna and Samuel was stronger than fear, shame, or hardship. She had stepped into the storm of the Wild West with nothing but her determination and her heart, and she would not let it break her. Mary had grown accustomed to the rhythm of the Crawford mansion, yet each day brought its own quiet fears. She had learned quickly that survival in this house was not measured in kindness, but in obedience, patience, and the ability to hide her true thoughts beneath a calm exterior. She rose before the sun, her children safe in a small room tucked behind the kitchen, and moved through the halls with careful steps. She cleaned, cooked, and carried water from the well, her hands rough and aching by the time the sun reached its peak. But even as she labored, Mary felt the weight of her most difficult task yet, the reason she had come here. She could not survive here alone. She had stepped across the threshold into Silas Crawford's world to save Anna and Samuel, and now she had to prove herself worthy of his trust. The whispered rumors of women who had failed him flashed in her mind. Some had been sent away in disgrace, others left to fend for themselves in the cruel streets of Red Rock. Mary could not allow that to happen. She had no choice but to show him her loyalty, even if it meant swallowing her pride every single day. Her chance came one afternoon. Silas had been sitting in the study, reading letters and documents by the faint light of the window. Mary had been tasked with delivering a fresh pitcher of water to him, and she approached quietly, careful not to disturb the heavy silence that filled the room. She placed the pitcher on the small table beside him and bowed slightly. "Madam," Silas said without looking up, "do you know why you are here?" Mary's throat tightened, and she nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. To serve and to do as you ask." He finally looked up, his sharp eyes piercing through her. "And yet most who come here do not last. They cannot endure the tests I set before them. Why should you be any different?" Mary took a deep breath, steadying the quiver in her voice. "Because I have no one else. My children are depending on me, sir. I will do whatever it takes to protect them." Silas leaned back in his chair, studying her for a long moment. "Do you understand what that means?" he asked. "Obedience is not suggested here. It is required. Every action, every word must meet my expectations. Fail, and there will be consequences." Mary's stomach churned, but she held his gaze. "I understand, sir." "I will do whatever you ask." There was silence for a moment, and then Silas nodded slowly. "Very well. Tomorrow you will begin a trial. It will test your patience, your skill, and your willingness to serve without complaint." Mary bowed again, feeling a mixture of fear and relief. The trial was an opportunity to prove that she could survive here and ensure the safety of her children. Yet she knew it would not be easy. The tasks he set were not ordinary chores. They were designed to measure loyalty and resilience, to expose weakness and hesitation. That evening, Mary returned to the small room where Anna and Samuel slept. She held them close, feeling the warmth of their bodies against her own. "Mama will succeed," she whispered, brushing their hair gently. "Tomorrow, I will show him that we deserve to survive." The next morning, the trial began. Silas assigned Mary a series of tasks that tested both her physical endurance and her ability to remain calm under pressure. She cleaned every corner of the mansion until her hands were raw, organized the pantry with meticulous care, and tended to the garden under the hot sun, each movement watched closely by one of Silas's trusted men. Mary worked tirelessly, her body aching, but she refused to complain. She had learned quickly that complaints or hesitation would mark her as weak, and weakness in the Crawford household was not tolerated. She reminded herself constantly of her children, imagining their faces as she worked. Each bead of sweat, each aching muscle was a step toward keeping them safe, a step toward ensuring they would have food in their bellies and a roof over their heads. As the days passed, Mary began to understand the subtle rules of the mansion. She noticed how Silas observed her, sometimes silently, sometimes with questions meant to unsettle her. He asked about her past, her experiences, and her motivations, probing for weaknesses and inconsistencies. Mary answered carefully, never revealing more than necessary, always keeping her focus on the one thing that mattered, the survival of her children. One afternoon, Silas approached her while she was scrubbing the floors of the main hall. "You have been here for several weeks now," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "Tell me, what drives you to endure such hardship?" Mary paused, wiping her hands on her apron before speaking. "Sir, I endure because I have no other choice. My children depend on me. I must survive for them, no matter the cost. Silas studied her expression for a long moment, and then a shadow of a smile crossed his face. You are honest. That is rare. Most would offer excuses, lies, or flattery. You offer only truth. That is acceptable. Despite the small relief, Mary remained cautious. She had learned that approval in the Crawford household was fleeting, and a single misstep could undo weeks of careful work. She continued her duties with renewed determination, knowing that every action mattered, that every word and movement could either secure her place or threaten it. During this time, Mary began to observe the household itself, the servants, the other women, and even Silas himself. She noticed the fear and tension that lingered in every corner, the way everyone moved carefully to avoid angering the master of the house. Yet she also saw glimpses of kindness and loyalty among the staff, small acts of support that helped her endure the long, grueling days. She learned to rely on these quiet allies, sharing small words of encouragement or a knowing glance, building trust without drawing attention. Mary also discovered the unspoken rules that governed interactions with Silas. Complimenting him, showing respect, and remaining unobtrusive were all necessary. But she also realized that careful observation and subtle intelligence could give her an edge. She began to anticipate his moods, to adjust her actions before he issued commands, and to maintain a balance between service and cautious independence. One evening, after completing the day's tasks, Mary returned to her small room, exhausted but not defeated. She held Anna and Samuel close, brushing their hair and whispering reassurances. "We are safe, for now," she murmured. "And as long as I am here, we will stay safe. Mama will not fail you." Her nights were restless, filled with worry and planning. She thought of the challenges ahead, the way she could protect her children while maintaining Silas's favor. She knew that every day would bring new tests, new demands, and new dangers. But she also knew that she had the strength to endure them. Her love for her children was a shield, her determination a weapon, and she would not allow anything to destroy the fragile safety she had created. Through it all, Mary remained aware of the whispers outside the mansion walls. Townsfolk watched, speculated, and judged, but their opinions mattered little compared to the safety of her children. She focused on her work, her strategies, and the small victories that ensured Anna and Samuel had food to eat, clothes to wear, and a place to sleep. As the weeks turned into months, Mary's confidence grew. She learned to navigate the complexities of the Crawford household, to anticipate Silas's moods, and to maintain her dignity even in the face of demeaning tasks. Each day was a careful dance of obedience, intelligence, and subtle influence, a delicate balance that allowed her to survive while keeping her children safe. Mary's trial was far from over, but she had proven her resilience. She had shown that desperation could be transformed into strength, that love for her children could overcome fear and shame, and that careful observation and cunning could protect her family even in the harshest of circumstances. And as she prepared for another long day, Mary allowed herself a brief moment of hope. She had stepped into a world filled with danger, uncertainty, and cruelty, but she had also found a way to endure, to serve, and to protect. With every task completed, every challenge met, she moved one step closer to securing a future for Anna and Samuel, a future where they could survive, thrive, and perhaps, one day, escape the shadow of Silas Crawford's imposing mansion. Life in the Crawford mansion had become Mary's new reality, a world of constant labor, careful observation, and endless vigilance. She had grown accustomed to the daily routines, yet each day was filled with the subtle tension that came from living under Silas Crawford's watchful eyes. Every action, every word, even the way she moved across a room could be measured, judged, and scrutinized. Mary had learned quickly that the line between success and failure was razor thin, and that any misstep could put her children's safety at risk. Mary began to notice the rhythms of the household, the quiet conversations behind closed doors, the glances exchanged among the servants, and the subtle ways in which each person tried to survive in a place ruled by a man whose moods could shift like the desert wind. She learned to read these signs, to anticipate Silas's expectations, and to carry out her tasks with efficiency and care. Even the smallest gestures mattered. A bow at the right moment, a well-timed smile, or the ability to stay out of sight when he was angry or distracted. Her children, Anna and Samuel, remained her constant motivation. Mary had found a small hidden corner of the mansion where they could play and rest safely. She taught them to be quiet when necessary, to avoid drawing attention, and to help her in small ways, such as carrying water or picking vegetables from the garden. Despite the restrictions, she tried to give them a sense of normalcy, telling stories in the evening, singing soft lullabies, and reminding them that they were loved. Even in this difficult world, Mary also began to observe Silas more closely. She noticed the man behind the imposing facade, a man who carried loneliness with him, whose wealth and power had isolated him from genuine companionship. She realized that he was not merely cruel or demanding. He was cautious, controlling, and constantly testing those around him. He valued loyalty and intelligence, but he expected complete submission. Understanding this was crucial for Mary. She knew that her survival and the safety of her children depended on her ability to navigate his moods and anticipate his commands. Over time, Mary began to find small ways to assert herself without provoking Silas's anger. She discovered that by performing her tasks with exceptional skill and diligence, she could earn brief moments of favor. A freshly polished floor, a perfectly arranged table, or a well-tended garden could bring a rare nod of approval from him. These small victories became sources of strength for Mary, proof that she could survive, adapt, and even influence her environment while remaining within the strict boundaries imposed upon her. Despite the rigid rules of the mansion, Mary found allies in unexpected places. Some of the other women in the household, those who had served Silas for years, quietly admired her courage and determination. They offered small pieces of advice, whispered warnings about Silas's unpredictable temper, and shared glimpses of their own strategies for survival. Servants who were often overlooked became her confidants, helping her navigate the hidden corridors, avoid traps, and carry out tasks more efficiently. These quiet friendships gave Mary a sense of belonging, a reminder that even in a harsh and unforgiving place, human kindness could still exist. Mary also began to recognize the subtle ways in which she could influence Silas without defiance. By anticipating his needs, preparing meals just the way he liked them, and keeping the household running smoothly, she earned his trust. He began to rely on her for small tasks beyond what he would assign to others, testing her judgment and her loyalty. Each successful task increased her standing, giving her more control over her daily life and, indirectly, more protection for her children. Yet life in the mansion was not without fear. Silas's temper could flare without warning, and Mary had to be vigilant at all times. A misplaced word, a delayed task, or even a moment of hesitation could draw his anger. Mary learned to remain calm in the face of intimidation, to hide her fear behind a composed exterior, and to respond to challenges with patience and intelligence. She had no choice. Her children's lives depended on her ability to endure, adapt, and survive. One afternoon, Mary was tasked with overseeing the cleaning of the main hall while Silas hosted a group of important visitors. She moved quickly and quietly, ensuring that every surface shone and that every chair was in its proper place. The visitors were impressed, noting the order and cleanliness of the mansion, and Silas offered a rare word of praise. Mary felt a small surge of pride, knowing that her careful attention to detail had earned this moment of approval. It was a reminder that even in a place filled with danger and uncertainty, skill, intelligence, and diligence could create opportunities for success. As she continued to navigate the mansion, Mary also began to notice the small vulnerabilities in Silas's character. He was cautious and sometimes indecisive when confronted with unexpected situations. He valued loyalty and honesty, but he also feared betrayal and deception. Mary realized that by understanding his weaknesses, she could better protect herself and her children. She began to plan quietly, thinking through each day's tasks and anticipating potential challenges, always keeping Anna and Samuel at the center of her decisions. Despite the constant demands, Mary found moments of quiet joy. She taught her children to find beauty in small things, the way sunlight filtered through the windows, the colors of the garden in bloom, or the sound of a bird singing outside. These moments reminded her that life, even in hardship, could hold small treasures. They also strengthened her resolve. reinforcing her commitment to endure whatever challenges lay ahead. Mary's endurance and intelligence did not go unnoticed by the staff. Some of the other women began to seek her guidance, asking for advice on handling Silas's temper or completing difficult tasks. Mary shared what she could, careful not to reveal anything that might endanger her position. These small acts of mentorship strengthened her influence within the household and created a network of quiet allies who could provide support in times of difficulty. However, Mary knew that she could never fully let her guard down. Silas remained unpredictable, and the mansion was a place where fortunes could change in an instant. She continued to observe, learn, and adapt, always mindful of the delicate balance between obedience and strategy. She realized that her survival depended not only on physical labor but also on emotional intelligence, careful observation, and the ability to anticipate the needs and moods of those around her. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mary sat with Anna and Samuel in their small hidden corner of the mansion. She held them close, feeling the warmth of their bodies and the steady rhythm of their breathing. "Mama is learning," she whispered softly. "I am learning how to keep us safe, how to survive. And one day, we will be free." Her thoughts turned to the future. She knew that the trials were far from over, and that Silas would continue to test her in ways she could not yet imagine. But she also knew that she had grown stronger, more cunning, and more resilient than she had ever thought possible. Each day of labor, each moment of observation, and each small victory had prepared her for the challenges ahead. Mary understood that life in the Crawford mansion was a delicate dance of obedience, strategy, and endurance. She had learned to move gracefully within the boundaries imposed by Silas, to gain his trust without revealing too much, and to protect her children even when danger lurked around every corner. She had found strength in her determination, courage in her love for Anna and Samuel, and hope in the small victories that allowed her to endure each day.
As the night settled over Red Rock, Mary felt a quiet sense of accomplishment.
She had survived another day, earned the tentative approval of Silas, and maintained the fragile safety of her children. She knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but she also knew that she possessed the intelligence, resilience, and courage to face them. In the quiet darkness of the mansion, Mary whispered a promise to herself and to her children. She would endure, she would survive, and she would protect them at all costs. The Wild West was a harsh and unforgiving place, but Mary had discovered that love, determination, and careful strategy could create a path through even the most dangerous of landscapes. And as she closed her eyes, holding Anna and Samuel close, she allowed herself a small moment of hope. The journey was far from over, but Mary knew that she had the strength to continue, the wisdom to navigate the challenges ahead, and the courage to face whatever trials the Crawford mansion and the Wild West itself might throw in her path. Mary had settled into the rhythm of the Crawford mansion, but life there was never truly predictable. Each day she faced challenges that tested not only her endurance, but her moral strength and intelligence. Silas Crawford was a man of careful calculation, and he often presented tasks designed to reveal the true nature of those around him. Some were simple, some demeaning, and others were dangerous, meant to test courage and loyalty in ways that could shake even the strongest heart. Mary had learned to approach each challenge with caution, patience, and determination, always keeping her children at the center of every choice she made. It was a late afternoon when Silas approached her with a look she had come to recognize, one that signaled a test. "Mary," he said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of command, "I have a task for you, one that requires attention, obedience, and discretion. You may find it difficult, but I expect nothing less than your complete dedication." Mary's heart thudded in her chest, yet she forced herself to remain composed. She bowed slightly, keeping her voice steady. "Yes, sir, I will do as you ask." Silas's task was simple in description, but fraught with hidden danger. He asked Mary to deliver a message to a neighboring landowner, one that required careful wording and timing. The task seemed straightforward, yet Mary quickly realized the subtleties. The landowner was not to know the full extent of Silas's intentions, and any mistake could lead to anger, suspicion, or worse. The responsibility weighed heavily on her, for failure could not only ruin her position in the mansion but also endanger her children. As Mary prepared to carry out the task, she felt the familiar mix of fear and determination. She knew that her success depended on careful observation and clever planning. She took the time to memorize every detail of Silas's instructions, rehearsed her words, and thought through possible questions or interruptions that might arise. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the sealed note, but she steadied herself, reminding herself that Anna and Samuel's safety rested on her ability to navigate this challenge.
On her way to the neighboring estate, Mary moved cautiously through the dusty streets.
The sun was low, casting long shadows across the town, and every step seemed heavier than the last. She passed familiar faces, townsfolk who greeted her with polite nods, but whose eyes carried curiosity or judgment. Mary ignored them, focusing instead on the path ahead and the task that could secure her children's future. Upon reaching the neighboring landowner's home, she was met with polite suspicion. The man was wary of visitors, especially women alone, and Mary had to carefully present herself in a way that conveyed both respect and authority. She handed him the note, following Silas's precise instructions, and spoke with calm confidence. "Sir, this comes directly from Mr. Crawford. It is important and requires your immediate attention." The landowner opened the note and studied it for several moments. Mary's heart pounded as she waited silently, feeling the weight of every second. Finally, he nodded, acknowledging her delivery. "Very well," he said. "Your message will be handled as instructed." Mary exhaled quietly, relief washing over her. She had successfully completed the task without error, yet she knew this was only one of many challenges she would face. Each task in Silas's household required not just skill and obedience, but also intelligence, patience, and the ability to read the intentions of those around her. Returning to the mansion, Mary reflected on the delicate balance she maintained daily. She had begun to understand that survival in this environment required more than obedience. It required careful strategy. She had to anticipate Silas's moods, understand his weaknesses, and navigate the complex relationships within the household. Every action carried consequences, and every choice could either strengthen her position or place her in danger. As Mary continued her duties, she noticed small cracks in Silas's authority. His careful control over the household was strong, but not absolute. Moments of indecision or distraction provided opportunities for her to subtly influence outcomes in ways that benefited her and her children. She began to use these openings wisely, ensuring that Anna and Samuel remained safe and that she could maintain her position without attracting unnecessary attention. Despite her growing confidence, Mary was never free from fear. Silas's unpredictability remained a constant threat. He could shift from calm to anger without warning, and his expectations were unrelenting. Mary had learned to read his expressions, to anticipate his words, and to respond in ways that would satisfy him while keeping her independent judgments intact. It was a delicate balance, one that required vigilance, intelligence, and unwavering focus. Mary also continued to cultivate her quiet network of allies within the mansion. The other women and servants respected her diligence and resourcefulness. She offered guidance when appropriate, shared small tips for handling Silas's moods, and provided reassurance when others were anxious. These relationships, built on trust and mutual respect, became essential to her survival. They allowed her to navigate the complex household dynamics more effectively, and provided a measure of support in an otherwise isolating environment.
One evening, Silas called Mary to his study.
His expression was serious, his eyes sharp. "Mary, I am testing not just your obedience, but your judgment. The tasks I assign will become increasingly complex, and they may challenge your moral sense. You must navigate them carefully." Mary listened intently, her heart steady despite the tension in the room. She understood that this was a warning as much as a directive. Silas was not merely interested in obedience. He was testing her character, her intelligence, and her ability to act in difficult situations. She nodded slowly, acknowledging the challenge. "I understand, sir," she said. "I will do my best to serve faithfully and wisely." The following days brought tasks that were morally challenging. Silas required Mary to handle sensitive matters with discretion, to deliver messages or manage situations that tested her integrity and courage. She was careful to follow instructions precisely, balancing obedience with careful judgment to avoid unnecessary harm or risk. Each successful completion of these tasks strengthened her position within the household and demonstrated her intelligence and reliability. Yet Mary never lost sight of her ultimate goal, the safety and well-being of Anna and Samuel. Every decision she made, every action she took, was filtered through the lens of their protection. She knew that survival in the Crawford mansion was not only about enduring hardship. It was about using her position strategically to safeguard her children's future. Mary also began to recognize the subtle ways in which Silas relied on her. Her careful handling of tasks, her discretion, and her ability to navigate difficult situations made her indispensable in the household. Silas, though still demanding and cautious, began to trust her judgment in small matters, allowing her a degree of autonomy that she had not previously experienced. This trust was fragile, but it provided opportunities for Mary to influence events in ways that benefited her and her children. Despite the constant demands and dangers, Mary found moments of quiet satisfaction. She took pride in her ability to navigate a complex and often perilous world, to maintain her integrity, and to protect those she loved. She knew that every challenge she faced was a step toward securing a stable and safe life for Anna and Samuel. Her days remained filled with labor, observation, and careful planning, but Mary had grown stronger, wiser, and more resilient. She had learned to anticipate challenges, to act with intelligence and discretion, and to maintain her position within the Crawford household. Each success, no matter how small, reinforced her confidence and her determination to survive. One afternoon, Mary overheard a conversation that revealed a secret about Silas, a plan that could impact the town and his household. She realized that this knowledge was dangerous, but it also presented an opportunity. By using her intelligence and discretion, she could navigate this situation to protect herself and her children. She began to plan carefully, considering every possible outcome and preparing for the challenges that lay ahead. Mary understood that her journey was far from over. The challenges of the Crawford mansion would continue, each one testing her courage, morality, and intelligence. Yet she also knew that she had grown capable of meeting these challenges with resilience and strategy. Her love for her children, her determination to survive, and her careful observation had equipped her to face even the most difficult trials. As night fell over Red Rock, Mary returned to her small room where Anna and Samuel slept peacefully. She held them close, feeling the warmth of their bodies and the steady rhythm of their breathing. "We are safe tonight," she whispered softly. "And no matter what comes, Mama will protect us." Mary's life in the Crawford mansion remained a delicate balance of obedience, strategy, and endurance. She had faced dangerous turning points, morally challenging tasks, and moments of fear, yet she had survived them all with courage and intelligence. Each day strengthened her resolve and reinforced her ability to navigate the complex and perilous world of the Wild West. And as she closed her eyes, holding her children close, Mary allowed herself a quiet hope. She knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but she also knew that she possessed the strength, wisdom, and courage to meet them. In the shadows of the Crawford mansion, Mary had found her power, the ability to survive, to protect, and to endure, no matter the trials that lay ahead. Mary had spent months navigating the harsh and unpredictable world of the Crawford mansion. Every day had tested her endurance, intelligence, and courage. She had faced moral dilemmas, physically demanding tasks, and the constant threat of Silas Crawford's anger. Yet through it all, she had remained focused on the one thing that mattered most, the safety and well-being of her children, Anna and Samuel. Now she faced her greatest challenge, one that would determine not only her future, but the future of those she loved. It began with a realization. Through careful observation, Mary had discovered a weakness in Silas's operations, a secret plan he had been keeping from the town, something that, if revealed, could weaken his control and expose vulnerabilities. She understood immediately that this knowledge could be dangerous if mishandled, yet it also provided her with an opportunity. By acting wisely, she could secure a better position for herself and, more importantly, protect Anna and Samuel from the harshness of the mansion and the town. Mary spent days planning. She could not act recklessly. Every step had to be calculated, every word measured. She consulted quietly with trusted allies among the household staff, those who had grown to respect her intelligence and discretion. Together they devised a careful approach, one that would allow Mary to use the information she possessed to her advantage without drawing suspicion or anger from Silas. Her first step was subtle. She continued her daily duties with unwavering diligence, cleaning, cooking, and tending to the garden as if nothing had changed. Silas noticed her continued commitment and dedication, offering small acknowledgments and approvals that reinforced her position. Mary used this trust as a shield, giving her the space she needed to prepare for the next phase of her plan. Mary also focused on strengthening her children's safety. She found ways to secure extra supplies, hidden away where Silas could not see. She taught Anna and Samuel small skills that would help them remain unseen and safe within the mansion, like moving quietly, observing carefully, and understanding when to speak and when to remain silent. Every small measure added to their protection, and Mary felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that she was creating a safer environment for them. The pivotal moment arrived on an afternoon when Silas was occupied with a group of visiting traders. Mary carefully observed the interactions, noting the distractions and openings she could use. She carried out her tasks with flawless precision, all while keeping her mind focused on the larger plan. Then, at the right moment, she took a calculated risk. Using her knowledge of Silas's secret plan, she subtly influenced a conversation among the traders, steering it in a direction that would protect her children's interests and avoid revealing any dangerous information about Silas. Her plan required courage, composure, and intelligence. One wrong word or action could have exposed her to immediate punishment. Mary felt her heart pound, but she remained calm, carefully navigating the situation with tact and discretion. By the time Silas noticed, the outcome was already in her favor. The traders left with the impression that everything was in order, while Mary's careful handling ensured that no harm came to her family. Silas, though initially suspicious, was distracted by other matters and did not immediately connect Mary's actions to the subtle shifts in the situation. This allowed her to solidify her position further within the household. She had demonstrated intelligence, courage, and loyalty, and even Silas could not help but recognize the careful skill with which she managed the delicate balance of obedience and strategy. In the days that followed, Mary continued to execute small measures that strengthened her security and her children's well-being. She used her influence quietly, ensuring that Anna and Samuel had better food, safer spaces, and a sense of stability within the mansion's rigid structure. The other staff and women of the household looked to her with growing respect, acknowledging her ability to survive and protect those she cared for. Mary had become a figure of quiet strength, admired for her courage, intelligence, and unwavering dedication to her children. Mary also began to see changes in Silas. He started to rely on her judgment more often, assigning her tasks that required discretion and careful handling. Though he remained a man of strict rules and demanding expectations, he had grown to recognize Mary's value. He could not fully understand her motives, but he appreciated her reliability, intelligence, and the subtle skill with which she maintained her duties. Through all of this, Mary never lost sight of her ultimate goal, to secure a safer and more stable life for Anna and Samuel. She knew that her position, though precarious, offered opportunities that could not be ignored. By carefully navigating Silas's household and using her intelligence strategically, she could create a path toward survival and eventual freedom for her family. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mary gathered her children in their small, hidden corner of the mansion. She held them close, feeling the warmth of their bodies and the steady rhythm of their breathing. "We are safe," she whispered softly. "And Mama will continue to protect you, no matter what comes." The final test of Mary's endurance came when Silas himself assigned her a task that combined her past experiences, a complex challenge requiring obedience, intelligence, and moral judgment. He needed her to mediate a dispute involving local farmers and the mansion's interests, a situation fraught with tension and potential conflict. Mary approached it with caution, planning her words and actions carefully to satisfy Silas while protecting the people involved. Her calm and thoughtful handling of the situation impressed even Silas. The farmers left satisfied. The mansion's interests were preserved, and Mary's careful judgment had prevented any unnecessary harm. Silas regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and approval, perhaps realizing for the first time that Mary possessed both courage and intelligence beyond simple obedience.
In the quiet that followed, Mary felt a sense of accomplishment.
She had survived the most dangerous and morally challenging moments of her time in the Crawford mansion. She had protected her children, secured their safety, and earned a degree of trust and respect from even the most powerful man in the town. Her journey had been filled with fear, struggle, and difficult choices, yet she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Mary understood that her life would never be free from challenges. The Wild West was a harsh and unpredictable world, and danger could arise at any moment. But she had learned that love, determination, and intelligence could provide a shield against even the most formidable obstacles. She had discovered her own strength, the power of careful strategy, and the importance of protecting those she loved above all else. As the months passed, Mary continued to navigate the Crawford household with skill and caution. She maintained her duties, strengthened her position, and ensured that Anna and Samuel had a stable and safe environment in which to grow. The mansion, once a place of fear and uncertainty, had become a space where she could exercise quiet control, protect her children, and demonstrate her intelligence and courage. Mary's story in the Wild West was a testament to resilience. She had faced hunger, fear, and moral dilemmas, yet she had survived through patience, strategy, and unwavering love for her children. She had learned that even in a harsh and unforgiving world, it was possible to carve out a space of safety, dignity, and hope. And in the stillness of the night, as Anna and Samuel slept peacefully, Mary allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. She had endured the trials of the Crawford mansion, navigated dangerous and morally complex challenges, and ensured the survival of her family. She had demonstrated that courage and intelligence combined with love and determination could overcome even the harshest circumstances. Mary knew that her journey was far from over, but she had discovered her own power and resilience.